Hello and welcome back. I'm Oscar Sherlief and you're watching the news from Kazakhstan. The trial of 5 policemen charged with abuse of office during Zhenozem disorders continues in Aktau. On Wednesday, the presiding judge questioned the victims in the case whose family members died when police opened fire at protesters. The hearing was very tense and emotional, with many participants demanding death penalty for those responsible.
On Wednesday, victims in the trial of policemen said law enforcement officers opened precision-fire at people, not firing in the air as was claimed before. One of the Zhenozem residents said that her husband was shot dead when she went to the market to buy vegetables. According to the interrogation, a lot of people found their relatives wounded on the way to their holiday concert. For instance, paramedic Ulkhan Isenemanov was wounded when he was trying to hide an injured girl behind some buildings. There were women and children there, crowds of people. I helped that girl to get up and we ran to the yards together with her small brother. Then I thought that a rock hit my leg. Another victim, Nurbek Nurgaliyev, told the court that there were around 40 policemen shooting altogether. He believes everything was set up and is really upset to see only 5 officers on the dock. I was at the trials of 37 oil workers. All of them were handcuffed, and those who murdered people are sitting here unrestrained. This is outrageous. They killed people, but they are so calm as if they don't care about it. Kazan Dusekenov's son Atabergen was killed by the deputy head of Zhenozem DIA Yerlan Bakitkaluuli. Ballistic tests showed that Dusekenov was shot from a Makarov pistol produced in 1953 and owned by the officer. It should be noted that bullets were removed from all of the bodies and families do not know who had done it. Relatives are not aware of the forensic report as well. Kazan Dusekenov believes that the bullet is the main evidence. A man named Bukash was with my son that day. Now he's disabled group 2. A bullet got stuck in his spine. This bullet was fired from Baktikaulu pistol too. One of the victims, a mother who lost her son to the shooting, sang a funeral song right in the courtroom. The presiding judge repeatedly called for order in vain as the inconsolable woman continued to cry and demanded to punish those who ordered to open fire.
6 defendants on the case of 37 oilmen were brought to the trial of policemen on Wednesday. All 6 were questioned as case witnesses and the testimonies were highly emotional as well.
Wednesday's hearing was also attended by the attorney representing 4 complainants. Abzal Kuspan was invited to the trial by a Zhenozem 2011 committee. He demanded that his clients reply to judges' questions only in his presence, although this motion was rejected. On the first day of the trial, the lawyer noted that the defendants are not familiar with the laws and look confused during the hearings. All of the defendants are legally illiterate. They do not know how to answer questions. For instance, they had difficulty saying whether they had any claims to the accused. They don't understand the question of punishment. It became absolutely clear to me that the defendants are not aware even of the basic legal procedures.
Bulat Abilov, the leader of the Social Democratic Party Azad, who was also present at the trial on Wednesday, says the prosecution actually exposed law enforcement officers beating and opening fire at civilians. The politician believes the case so meticulously planned by the authorities is falling apart. The prosecution office is forced to carefully maneuver between the 2 trials of 37 oil workers and 5 policemen. Abilov says the second process was launched to calm down the population.
The authorities realized that in order to change public opinion, calm the citizens of Mangistau region down and put the oilmen to ease, they will need to bring someone to the process. Those 5 poor guys were made responsible and put on trial, although the complainants make it clear in the statement saying that at least 50 people need to be on trial and not 5. This is the situation now. They've found some scapegoats. Supposedly, these people even tried to beat up the policemen and nearly set them on fire. This was really ridiculous. The entire courtroom was laughing when they heard the policemen say this. One of them said that people in Shetpe were hostile to the policemen who were at the square that day. One interesting thing should be noted. The policemen said they saw political agenda there, posters demanding president's resignation, blaming him for the situation, etc. So this political element was supposedly resented by the police.
Defendant Timirov testified on Wednesday during the trial on tortures in the Zhenozem temporary detention ward. The former head of the facility is charged with abuse of office during the December events. Timirov says he is not guilty and initially refused to let the arrested people in without proper paperwork. Eventually, however, he was forced to follow the orders of his superiors. According to Timirov, December 16 was his first day in the new position, while the former head of the facility reassumed office immediately after the brought charges.
He was appointed on December 16, the day of mass unrest, and now he's on trial. The former chief of temporary detention facility, Seyit Japarov, had been fired for some violations, and my son was appointed. But now that he has been charged and arrested, Seyit Japarov has been reinstated. This is what's not clear and suspicious. Meanwhile, one of the victims' lawyers, Shamin Bazarov, believes that Mukhtar Khojayev, the former chief of Zhanaozen City Department of Internal Affairs, should be on the dock along with Temirov. Temirov was questioned on Friday and explained to the court that he had been involved with accommodating the leadership from Astana and knew nothing about tortures in the temporary detention. However, the leader of NSDP Azad Party, Bulat Abilov, agrees with the lawyers. The politician is confident that the police leadership was aware of violence and tortures. The defendant states that he was conducting arrests by a direct order from Khojayev illegally without a document check. In this case, I believe that the former chief of the Internal Affairs Department, Khojayev, should be prosecuted as well. Of course, now everyone will try to save themselves. They will say, I gave no orders, I knew nothing. Of course, they knew everything perfectly well, and their orders were most likely spoken, not in writing. No one will document an order to torture or beat someone up, they understand that. But since the policemen are insiders, they already have a setting to torture, beat up, butcher, suppress, and shoot, this is for sure. That is, I believe that no matter what he says, all of them should be sitting on the defendant's bench.
Keikbay Yishmanov, the former director of the company Ozenmunaygaz, was questioned on Wednesday during the trial of 37 oilmen charged with starting disorders in Zhanaozen. Yishmanov is also part of another criminal case on allegations of embezzling assets in large scale. Yesterday, Yishmanov sided with the prosecution and said the main culprits in the case are some unnamed instigators.
The former head of the Ozenmunaygaz company, Keikbay Yishman, on the trial after Zhanaozen events, defends the oil workers. He says that the workers did not disturb the public peace for 7 months of strike. He estimates his burnt house at $28,000, but he will not seek damage of the 37 oil workers accused. Yishmanov believes that the strike turned into massacre due to provocators. The conflict was initiated by Natalia Sokolova, he claimed. As soon as questioning finished, Yishmanov left the courtroom, refusing to talk to journalists. Opinions of the trial's participants in respect to Keikbay Yishmanov's testimony was divided. They were both critics and those content with his answers. It's all very questionable. He said nothing specific about the event of the December 16. This man gave more objective answers than Sarpopeyev did. In the very end, witness said that the oil workers are to blame. Supposedly nothing like this would have happened if there were no strike, but oil workers did not open fire at people. I agree with him, I agree with his words, and I think along these lines too. He eventually admitted that oil workers were not responsible for disorders, but in the end, he said they are still to blame. Yesterday, attorneys Arsenbin filed 2 petitions on violations during investigation. The first one is about local prosecutors combining criminal case article without notifying representatives of the National Investigation Team. The second states that the defendants were beaten during investigation by some men in black. The attorney says that representatives of the National Investigation Team have taken these facts rather lightly. Judge Nagashibayev has left the issue unresolved. The investigation team decree was issued by the Prosecutor General, which means it's under the authority of the National Prosecutor. Local prosecutor cannot question his actions. The matter is in hierarchy. If a district prosecutor makes a mistake, I would ask the regional prosecutor to look into the matter. And so that the head of the investigation team is a representative of Kazakhstan's prosecutor's office, I have already filed a petition and it's under consideration. Another attorney, Zhumanov, said that the words of defendant Zhumagaliyev passed linguistic expert evaluation. He is charged with incitement of ethnic hatred. The motion was left open by the judge as well. Special expert evaluation did not reveal Zhumagaliyev calling other citizens to join unrest. All he says is that he witnessed disorder and lawlessness at the square. Zhumagaliyev directed his words where is justice and law, not the crowd, but the policemen in cordon. Bulat Abilov, Azad NSDP leader, participated in the trial yesterday. The politician informed journalists that a new Zhanaozen movement will be formed soon. According to him, it may be a trust or an NGO. The authorities should know we are doing something. They think the trial will finally end and all the issues will be forgotten, that Zhanaozen and Shatbey episodes will simply pass and go away. But when the trial ends, it will be the only beginning. People won't forget those events. Those who ordered to open fire and why they did it, people will asking questions. Defendant Tagenev was under house arrest, was expected to be questioned yesterday. While waiting for him, the judge postponed the hearing for 20 minutes, but Tagenev never showed up. Representatives of the Zhanaozen 2012 International Committee says the defendant has complications with his wounded leg. Consequently, the trial was postponed until Thursday.
Yerlan Karin, the main ideologist of the ruling party, believes the Zhanaozen trials are fairly open and transparent. Karin even managed to sign up for news updates on the situation via several social networks, but did admit some accusations are quite questionable in nature.
Not all accusations were backed up with sufficient evidence during the trial. I hope that the court will take this into account when they make a ruling.
On Wednesday, the discussion club Amanat hosted a roundtable dedicated to the Great Famine and its consequences. Following the president's lead, the country's historians and MPs are now also call for a correct assessment of the tragic events.
Following the president, in store of the day to commemorate political repression, civil activists and political scientists started to discuss the significance of the Great Famine as well. They all agreed that the people of Kazakhstan suffered great losses in 1926 to 1939. The Soviet authorities were hiding the truth from the world, says historian Burkit Ayagan. Collectivization resulting in the Great Famine and the uncompromising class warfare are the reasons for the population decrease. For example, the execution lists have harvested a lot of people during that period. This was the outcome of the policy implemented by the Kazakh Regional Party Secretary Filip Goloschek. There exist various assessments of death toll of Kazakhs and Kazakhstan citizens in general during the years of collectivization. The Kazakh population decrease in those years was enormous and reached about 1.5 million people. In March, Nursultan Nazarbayev called for an unbiased assessment of the Great Famine in the Kazakh steppe. He also ordered to commemorate the 80th anniversary of the tragic event this year. In Astana, a rush construction of the monument to the Great Famine victims has started. The national leader himself has authorized its draft. Meanwhile, the project's author is already dissatisfied. The monument has been given an unfitting location next to a hotel at the crossroads of noisy and dusty streets, while the waiting wall has been reduced in size 2 times. I believe this is ridiculous. The monument will look like just a fence, to be honest. It will be too small. This is not the way it should be done. Such a good idea has been reduced to nothing, honestly. This is devaluation. The architect is sad to state that the people might not like the monument, which should have been the evidence of the tragedy's scale. So far, his inquiry why, despite the nation's leader's orders and the historian's evidence, such an important project has been treated so lightly, has not received any official response. Meanwhile, there is not much time left before May 31st, the day to commemorate political repressions.
The trial of Vadim Kuramshin in Jambil region opened with a confrontation between the judge and attorneys. Judge Samat Talisbay issued a ban on all audio and video recordings in the courtroom, initially only for reporters, but later also for the lawyers who wanted to capture the process on tape. This prompted the attorney to challenge the judge. However, Talisbay reviewed the motion himself, which obviously violated the procedure code. Only after the lawyers' protest, the judge decided to adjourn the court until May 7th.
Well done.
The judges' panel and the prosecutor in Jambil region were issued a recusation by the defense on the grounds that Udirbayev, who was considered a victim in the case, turned out to be the prosecutor who was present at the trial. It is alleged that Kuramshin was extorting money from him.
The results of the past dissent rally are discussed in Almaty. The protest action took place last Saturday and ended with traditional administrative arrests and fines. To prevent law enforcement from identifying a single organizer of the next rally, protest action participants shouted the date for the next gathering together. Meanwhile, experts note the challenge of protest moods as well as their impolitic nature.
More social issues and less politics. Only this will increase the numbers of members of dissent movement. Following the April 28 rally, experts are busy analyzing the outcome of the protest. Private interests, the focus of attention in Almaty, are a sign of increasing civic awareness, says Marzena Spandiarova, a member of NSTP Azad. She was not present near the Abay monument last Saturday. Just like her party colleagues, she has switched her attention to monitoring the Aktau court case. Social theme has not lost its urgency at all. On the contrary, it will develop further. It also may become a foundation for the future mass protests, growing from simply social into socio-economic base. This is obvious because even those who came with their local problems very soon realized that the obstacle for these people to be resolved with the legal framework is the current political regime. The protest movement now has opened doors to the discussion of social issues. This is the thinking shared by politician Mukhtar Tayjan. At the same time, he insists that the open-air speeches lead to the dead end. This is why it's necessary to discuss urgent problems in closed halls. This way, the police will not interrupt and the organizers will not be charged with administrative penalties. The number of attendees is decreasing, so is the rally's duration. Now it's all about a half an hour, maybe 40 minutes. For these 200 people together for a half an hour, other people have been jailed for 15 days. If they don't change the strategy of protest, then according to our legislation, next time they will be charged with a criminal offense and imprisoned for up to a year. Is there any sense and public benefit from the activists being in jail? I think not. Perhaps the social and not political demands of Almaty residents and absence of the opposition have influenced the police reaction, says human rights activist Vyacheslav Abramov, who was monitoring the action immediately in the square in front of the Hotel Kazakhstan. He concluded that the need to regularly express concerns is a positive trend for the country. You know, I think it's not bad that we have an emerging tradition of conducting regular rallies because we have an opportunity to express our opinion, formulate our position, whatever it is, a position for or against something. I believe that the police response was adequate. I have not seen mass arrests, and there were no attempts to interrupt this protest. As it has been reported, the fourth protest of dissenters gathered about 200 people. 3 of them were detained. Civic activist Yermek Narymbayev was arrested before any of the speeches, while Aygul Koshayeva and Janar Balgabayeva afterwards. In addition, on the same day, the administrative court punished 5 people in total. Civic activist Pakhtjan Torogozhina, artist Kanat Ibragimov, and activists of the movement Housing for the People Larissa Bayar will be detained for 15 days, while Tazabek Samsetbay, Aygul Koshayeva and Yermek Narymbayev have been fined. The next protest date in Almaty downtown is scheduled for June 2nd.
The staff of the newspaper Respublika addressed an open question to the Prosecutor General, wondering whether there were indeed preparations of alleged terrorist attacks in Almaty on March 24th. Using the news service of the Prosecutor's Office website, which allows anyone to see the list of wanted individuals, the newspaper staff found out that Muratbek Kitibayev, the head of the Civic Activity Fund, has no criminal record whatsoever. At the same time, Alexander Pavlov, Mukhtar Ablyazov's former head of security, is accused only of embezzlement or misappropriation of others' property. Both men, however, are currently held on charges of preparing the alleged Almaty attack.
Pavlov has been in charge of personal security for Mukhtar Ablyazov, the former head of Kazakhstan's PTA Bank, who is currently wanted by law enforcement agencies. Pavlov still carries out Ablyazov's confidential orders. Muratbek Kitibayev is one of the leaders of the political party Alga, pending registration, and the closest confidant of Mukhtar Ablyazov. Kitibayev, who permanently resides abroad, was acting in collusion with Pavlov. They are believed to have been plotting terrorism and extremism attacks since September 2011. According to the official line, on April 5, Almaty District Court of Almaty has sanctioned an arrest for Alexander Pavlov on terrorism charges. It's unclear whether the General Prosecutor's Office is aware of this. The newspaper staff is trying to analyze the logic behind the activity of the investigators and National Security Committee officers. The question is why the affairs of security services are made so public. The confession videos of alleged terrorists are broadcast on national TV channels and posted on internet. Besides, it's not clear why would terrorists voluntarily turn themselves into National Security Committee, or why would surrendered terrorists all of a sudden become witnesses, be allowed to live at home and do business.
Kazakhstan is an outsider on the list of 197 countries with free media published by the Freedom House. The state dropped 3 places from last year, ending up 175th. Among CIS countries, only Belarus, Uzbekistan and Turkmenistan are ranked even lower.
There are only 66 countries with full press freedom, 72 with partial press freedom, and 59 with no press freedom. African, Asian, and North Korea are the countries with most government pressure on media. Kyrgyzstan was ranked 155th place. Russia and Azerbaijan shared 172nd place, whereas Kazakhstan was ranked 175th, next to Ethiopia and Gambia.
The situation with freedom of speech has deteriorated in comparison to the last year, says Tamara Kaleva, the president of Adil Sos Foundation, during a conference in Almaty dedicated to the World Press Freedom Day. The activist noted that journalists' rights are widely violated across the country, while reporters themselves often end up as targets of violence. The recent brutal assault against Lukpan Akhmedyarov, an independent journalist from Uralsk, has really stirred the society and raised a new wave of criticism towards the authorities.
Many organizations, locally as well as internationally, have responded to the assault on journalist Lukpan Akhmedyarov. Kazakhstan's journalists and professional organizations such as Article 19 and World's Freedom of Expression Association, IFIX, launched a campaign which received support by counterparts from 27 countries, appealing to Kazakh authorities to thoroughly investigate the case, find and punish the assailants. On Wednesday, the head of Kazakhstan's journalists union, Kazim Ataev, had proposed to establish and mark the Day of Kazakh Journalism on May 15. The first Kazakh newspaper, Turkistan Voyality, was first published on this day. According to the president's decree, the Day of Journalists, traditionally celebrated on June 28, will be marked as the Day of Communications and Information Workers, starting this year.
Marat Asipov, the chief editor of the newspaper Vremya, is leaving his position on Thursday. He will be replaced by Lyu Tarakov, the head of the newspaper Litter. The decision was taken by the publication's shareholders and was revealed by Asipov himself in his interview to Vlast news portal.
He said he hasn't received any job offerings so far. Asipov has been working for the newspaper since its establishment for over 12 years, including 1 year as chief editor. According to the information resource, other well-known journalists may leave the newspaper along with Asipov, and the information policy of the publication is likely to change. A person from Litter, which is part of Nur Media State Information Holding, will take over the chief editor's position.
Is Dariga Nazarbayeva, the daughter of the incumbent president, back in the race for position as her father's successor? A post on the website guljan.org analyzes the current political situation and quotes unofficial sources within the president's administration who say this just might be the case.
The post also mentions Viktor Kharpunov's interview, where the former official, who well knows the political life in the country, suggests that the Operation Successor had been launched. The former mayor of Almaty says that two recent interviews aired on Russian Federal TV channel serve as the former evidences. In just 2 days, the president himself and his daughter Dariga Nazarbayeva were interviewed by the same channel. Despite the interview based rather on neutral questions, Nazarbayev had addressed the issue of international politics, while Dariga Nazarbayeva concentrated on her artistic endeavors only. Kharpunov sees these interviews as the beginning of a political campaign launched to promote Dariga Nazarbayeva. This is a PR job to prepare people for the idea of Dariga becoming the speaker of one of the chambers of the Kazakhstan's parliament. Which chamber exactly is being discussed right now in case of president's resignation? According to the law, the two people in chain of command are the Speaker of Senate, and if he's not available, then the lower chamber speaker. Considering Dariga is already the lower house MP, she can easily be appointed as speaker in the mentioned scenario, and she will be the one to replace Nazarbayev. The president's eldest daughter has been predicted to take over the presidency many times before. This is due to her political ambitions, says Kharpunov. For instance, the political party Asar she was linked to has quickly gained momentum, but then ended with family scandal involving her husband Rahat Aliyev. However, according to Kharpunov, Dariga Nazarbayeva has the highest chance than ever before to become the next president, given current circumstances of her father's poor health conditions and political crisis in the country. Just a week ago, Dariga Nazarbayeva had organized a fancy presentation of a documentary about herself in one of Moscow's most expensive hotels, which was attended by the Russia's showbiz stars and covered by two popular TV channels.
That is all we have time for now. Join us tomorrow for more. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.